council, there will be no.
You don't count your salary. You can't count yourself. Okay. Put in as many hours as you do, yeah.
You do?
I do.
You put in 50.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Public Works and Safety Committee meeting of the City Council on Wednesday, May 30th. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion and second for approval?
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Councilman Wise, second by Councilman Lallam.
Wrong side. You're getting all kinds of action now, John.
I'm giving you credit you don't deserve. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 2 is public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience that would like to talk about something not on the agenda to speak. Don't see anybody, so we'll move on to item number 3, which is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion and second for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lallam, second by Councilman Bueller. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 4 is approval of change order number 1 final with PKG Contracting Inc. for the wastewater treatment facility laboratory replacement project number 1716 for a deduction of $1,500. I look for a motion and second for approval. Moved by Councilman Bueller, second by Councilman Lallam. And we have Mike Berger here, wastewater superintendent, to tell us about this.
Okay. Yeah, the work on the laboratory has been done for quite some time now. It was back in November. H.R. Green, the engineers on this project, have prepared this change order to identify the liquidated damages for the project. PKG did not complete the project in accordance with the dates that were established in the contract, so they've been assessed liquidated damages in the amount of $500 a day for 3 days for a total of $1,500. So if approved, the change order decreases the contract value or cost by $1,500, and it adds 14 days of time to the contract.
Thank you, Mike.
I'd make a motion to approve.
We already did that.
Oh, we did?
Yep.
Sorry.
And
Who seconded?
now it's
me?
discussion.
Okay.
Any questions or discussion?
Is there a reason that it ran past, Mike?
Yeah, there's a few. I would start by saying the contractor requested 17 days, and then the team of H.R. Green Engineering, City Engineering, and Wastewater Department agreed to 14 of those days, which is the extension of 14 days, but we assessed the damages for 3 days. And one of their contentions was that if they'd been allowed in the lab earlier, they might have been done on time, but there were multiple facets to the project that were still hanging in the air at that time. There was a reagent shelf, which is about an 18-inch shelf on top of a laboratory counter. We had 2 of those installed. One came the right size, one was just a few inches tall, so they had to reorder and they had to wait for that. There was some duct work on some air fans on the roof that were misaligned that had to be corrected. And then there was some wiring correction to the fume hood switches, and then we had to have the fume hoods certified to that they were actually moving the required amount of air, 100 cubic feet per minute, for the lab staff to work in that environment. So there was a few things out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is Marina Bay Drive Bank Stabilization Project update. And I see Vanessa Victor from Infrastructure Design Group is here, and I'll let Shane introduce this.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. A while back, we have identified that the bank along the north side of Marina Bay Drive is sloughing off, and it will impact the road eventually. So we hired Infrastructure Design Group to help the city create a plan to stabilize that bank. And they're still under contract to do that. However, they were also awarded the bike trail project around the lake, and that project is going to require some additional work be done to the box culvert, which is adjacent to this area of Marina Lake or Marina Drive. So The recommendation that's coming from IDG to the city is that they would incorporate both the bike trail work project and the stabilization of the bank of the Marina Bay Drive under one project. And they'll get better bids doing that, and they'll also, the timing of the work will be better for disruption of public transportation. So with that, I'll let Vanessa add to that if she needs
Okay,
to.
and we're not needing any
No, this,
recommendation, just that this is just purely an update.
correct.
Right, yes, okay. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello. This is basically just updates of where contracts out with Shane's impending departure, so you guys are all aware of
Yeah.
where everything's at. The original bank stabilization was not going to be a super invasive project. With the needed bike trail going through and the modifications that will be needed to that WPA box culvert, it is more extensive, so it does behoove the city to lump them together, low mobilization costs, same contractor working, and one nice finished product that all ties together nicely. The stabilization is not ideal, but it's not unsettling, so it's not endangering any of the local residents at the current moment either.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 6 is consideration of change order number 1 with Rounds Construction for the landfill stormwater improvements project number 1818 in the amount of $5,500. Look for a motion and second for approval. Moved by Councilman Bueller, second by Councilman Lallam. And Mike Berger, the solid waste superintendent, is here to tell us about this.
Thanks. This change order does two things. First of all, it revises the project manual as required by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. They wanted us to put in language to state that we would obtain a dewatering permit prior to dewatering if we're required to dewater, and we might have to, we might not have to. So that was added. And then as the manual was developed and edited, there were some references to sections and specifications that no longer existed, so it was kind of a housekeeping thing. No cost, no revision to contract time. And then the meat of this change order would be temporary fencing. And this change order will provide for the installation of temporary litter fencing in areas where the existing fence must be removed for the construction project. So the existing fence must be removed because the grade is changing on this berm or road that is the top of the landfill. And then we're cutting a stormwater ditch into it to collect the stormwater that comes off the above grade garbage when it's placed, to get it to this ditch and get it off our property. And so with that, the fence had to be moved. So that exposes large areas of the landfill to litter leaving our premises, which is, we have a permit requirement that we control litter on a daily basis. So our first line of defense is we place temporary fences down in the working face as the wind shifts. Then the main line before that litter leaves our landfill is this permanent fence, and that's got to come down. So we want to put in some temporary fence inside that berm where it'll catch that litter when that fence is down for an extended period of time while they're doing that construction and grading. And that comes at a price of $5.50 a foot for up to 1,000 feet. We're asking for 1,000 feet, but right now I think we're probably we've identified about 650 feet as a project is moving forward, and then there'll be a quantity adjustment at the end of the project.
Okay, the transmittal sheet says $3,000
That's
expected.
a typo.
Is that just for the expected amount, that it might be up to 5,500? Oh, it was a typo.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 5,500. It's all for the fence. All of that 5,500 is for
at
the fence.
$5.50 a foot to be adjusted at the completion. So
okay, but it might be less.
yes.
Okay, very good, excellent. Any questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Mike. Item number 7 is recommendation of city participation in the big grant for the 3rd Avenue Bridge and associated roadway construction. And we are looking for a recommendation from the committee on this, Shane?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
So ask for a motion and second for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lallam, second by Councilman Bueller, and we'll let Shane explain this. And Vanessa's still here, so she might have some information to answer
Okay.
questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Third Avenue Bridge replacement is scheduled roughly for the year 2020. We've been looking at a lot of options on how to score better in the next big grant application. We've already received a big grant that covered the preliminary engineering stage of the project, and that portion of the project is wrapping up. So headed forward, we did ask IDG to help us identify how we would best increase our point limit so that we can point better against our competitors in the state for the big grant. So we looked at two tracks. One was a lot of current applicants have been increasing their public share. We're required to provide at least 20% funds for the project, and the recent big grant applications have had up to 50% public participation. We've looked at a slightly different track. If we pay for 100% of the design engineering, which is estimated at $180,000, we would get a full 10 points of a bump in our big grant point standing, which is essentially comes in at about 30% of matching public funds, or 35%, right in that range. So we could actually, it pencils out for us to pay for the design portion of the project, get more points so that we get funded better or in a more timely manner with the big grant. And I'll let Vanessa explain that timing a little bit more.
Hello again. Basically, the big grant it's a gamble. It's a grant, so nobody's guaranteed anything. So basically trying to look at the best way that the city could go about trying to maximize dollars to replace the structure. There are already some non-participating elements. If we're doing work on the actual bridge itself, it does make sense to extend and fix some storm sewer issues and roadway issues with 3rd Avenue itself. Since it's a big bridge improvement grant, the DOT won't pay for those items. So that's already would have to come out of city dollars. So when we look at the actual structure itself and how to move forward, what's the best use of your money? This last year was a pretty crazy year for big replacement grants. There is $9 million for the state to give away, and they awarded 5 bridges. And one was to a city, but every single one of those bridges did kick in about 50%, and it was extremely aggressive. And the minimum score that was awarded on a 100-point scale, it's actually a 90-point scale for cities, and then it's a percentage base, but was over 60. Right now, the 3rd Avenue Bridge is a 52.7. So it's a good score, but this year it wouldn't have done very well. That being said, next year, with the way the big improvement grant goes, and when they had initiated it from the onset, the DOT was going to use up the rest of their STIP funding and that program, and then they were going to kick in more money. So next year, the pool of money actually doubles. So it's unclear, still a gamble on whether or not it would be awarded without any local match. That being said, since we don't really want to construct in 2019 because 212, they will be doing the bridge on the Big Sioux in 2019, and wanted construction for this bridge was always 2020. So it is our recommendation that you actually apply for the big grant, which isn't until December. Still doing some bookkeeping, but since it's budgeting process, this is rearing its head now. But apply in December without a local match and just see where your score lines up, because there are additional, the pot of money is doubled. So there's a really good chance that you could get awarded for a 2020 construction, which wouldn't cost any more than your 80-20 match, or as a contingency, we'd go in on a design contract at the beginning of the year, and so you'd have bid-ready plans. So bid-ready plans, you get 10 extra points. So then you're at a 62.7, and you'd still construct in 2020 in your wanted year. It is a better use of money. Truthfully, with the timing of this, the design fees are not going to be that high. I have not even assembled hours. This is just base percentage only for engineering, so it's not going to be $180,000. But just wanted you to all be aware that I know that many of the council members did know that you can chip in more than your 20% match, but there's a better use of spending that money. And the reason behind that is they do want to make a splash with their money. So it shows that you have initiative, you're ready to go to bid, you're ready to get a contractor out there, and then they can put their signs up, and the legislators can pat themselves on the back. So.
Okay, are there any questions for Vanessa or for Shane? So what we've made the motion for is to accept this recommendation from Infrastructure Design Group, which says apply without a local match. So chances are small, but then we'll get bid-ready plans. If they give it to us, yay, no match. If they don't, then we'll have the plans ready for the next round, and we'll be able to apply with plans ready. We aren't ready with plans right now.
No.
So we don't have that option of going for plans already done, but we will next time around. So this is a good deal. Good recommendation. Any other?
Sounds like basically a win-win. I mean, if we get the 100%, then great. If we don't, we're ready to go, and we can start when we originally planned out. So we do not. My interpretation is that we don't want to be doing two bridges at the same time. Is that what I'm hearing?
From a traffic standpoint, I don't think closing two bridges over the Big Sioux would be very good in the city of Watertown.
Okay.
So.
I'm okay with that
Agreed.
as well.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, all those in favor say, oh, sorry, Glenn.
Totally off the wall question. What is a TS&L?
It is a type, size, and location. So that's part of your preliminary engineering that we just went through.
Okay, thank you.
So we run hydraulics, and then we go out to the site and fit a structure in there.
Yeah. That's a good question. That's a good question. Fair question. Anything else?
Now I know you were reading.
Yes. You get an A for participation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Item number 8 is the Highway 212 Phase 2 Transportation Study Update. Shane?
Thank you, Mayor. As part of the Highway 212 project in Phase 2, we asked previously for help from the DOT concerning the intersections of 11th Avenue, 14th Avenue, and 17th Avenue, or streets, excuse me. And the state is considering the level of help that they would want from the city as well. And part of their request was that we hire a firm to do a traffic impact study for each of those intersections so that they know how the traffic currently interacts with those intersections and to project how we expect the traffic to interact in the future. So with that, I have drafted an RFP that would go out to a list of engineer firms that are on the approved state list to conduct that traffic impact study. So I put that together. This is more of an update for you than anything to act on, but we expect that document would be ready to go out for firms so that you can make a selection in the near future and have that traffic impact study done. So that
RFP
questions?
is a request for proposals.
Proposals, correct. Yep.
Some people don't know that, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. All right. Thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane? All right, then we'll move on. Item number 9 is discussion on Campeska Dunes second subdivision letter of assurance development agreement. And Brandy Hatton, the urban planner, is here at the request of a potential buyer of the land. There's an outstanding obligation remaining, and so wanted to bring that forward for discussion. Okay, Brandy.
Okay, thank you. So here we have, I'll see if I can zoom out. Maybe. Okay, the Campeska Dunes second subdivision. This was platted in 2006, and just recently I had a developer come into my office and was interested in purchasing Lot 5, and then we came to find out that there is a development agreement and there are some requirements that have not been met yet.
Lot A.
Oh, what
You
I-
said 5. That's okay.
Oh gosh, I have no idea where that came from. So Lot A. And so I guess it referenced a preliminary plan, and it's not actually attached to this development agreement. So if we can get that up there. Okay. So currently, well, I'll have to point now. Currently, we have this road constructed to this point, and then there's a turnaround easement. And the agreement says that within 10 years, which would have been 2016, that this road, which is 11th, would have been, or no, this is 12th, would have needed to be constructed. So now I guess we're asking, and he's interested to know because he needs to make a decision on this property, if it's worth him purchasing and trying to develop. There was, and with this preliminary plan, this is expired now. So, but what his plan is to basically split it up into quadrants because it's so low and the amount of fill that he would have to bring in if he were to go forward with what the preliminary plan shows, that it most likely wouldn't be profitable. So I guess we need to figure out if we update the development agreement and we require a road be put in somewhere so there's secondary, and you can switch me over now, Ray. Thank you. If it's necessary for secondary access, if we reroute it to have it meet up with Golf Course Road. And like I said, right now there's a turnaround easement that's recorded with this plat. And I did talk to the fire marshal, and he said that as long as there's not over 30, or I think actually it was 20 dwelling units, that he is okay with not having secondary access. But I guess also those people might have bought those lots thinking that they would have secondary access in the future. So, and the developer is here if you guys do want to ask him any questions, or I guess we can open it up for discussion.
The potential buyer is here, right? Not the not the one that developed this.
No. Yep. Okay. So yeah, the interested party.
Yeah. Right. Adam?
Brandy, you said you talked, I assume it's Chip,
Yeah.
right? And he said if there's not more than 20 units.
Yep.
So is it 20 units including the 4 if we quadrant that off?
No, because there would only be one more accessing 12th Avenue North if what the buyer is proposing to do.
Because there's 21 lots out there and 12 is using a
Right.
turnaround easement. So if they build in all 21 lot or 20 lots, they're at 20.
Now I feel like it was 30.
I think it was 30. I feel like it was 30.
Because I know that we were safe with what was platted. So I'm sorry.
I'll
It
look
is
for
30.
it quick.
Okay.
I'm sure it's
30,
30.
yeah.
And a couple of these lots, lot 1 here on the south, that's a stormwater pond, so that's
Yep.
not a dwelling.
I didn't count that one.
And 12 here is got a easement going through it, so there's probably not gonna be a
Right.
structure there anytime soon, so.
But the 1 through 11 and the 2 through
Yep,
9.
yep.
Randy, could you switch to the other drawing?
To the preliminary plan? Yeah. Right, you want to switch that over again?
Okay, so if this is modified, only the council can cancel out those obligations to complete that road. And that's kind of what the person who's considering developing this land would like to do, is just quit where it is now and don't extend the road. And so new lots would have access directly onto the collector routes, and both the north-south and the east-west roads are collector routes, where we normally do not allow driveways directly. But it's only a few lots, and they would be spaced far apart like a road, so the impact isn't huge. And the turnaround should be constructed somewhere, a permanent turnaround, if you were to forgive the promises of the development agreement. That would have to be done formally with a new agreement that cancels out the old. That would have to be approved by the full council. So that's what's being suggested, is to whatever's left in terms of the road. Now there's still some detention pond things left over and some sidewalk things that also haven't been done. It isn't just the road. There are other outstanding obligations that have nothing to do with this. So probably wouldn't want to cancel the entire development agreement without considering whether or not you want to refresh those obligations or pursue them. They were supposed to have been completed by 2016 and they haven't been. So that's a question.
Mayor, you say there's sidewalk agreements that are sidewalk that has to be put in. Is it along like block 2, block 1?
Along the detention pond.
Along
Yes.
the detention pond.
This area right here.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Where at, Brandon?
Right here.
Sidewalk there.
Yes.
Is there
And
sidewalk?
then is it up here too, Mayor? That they have not?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But everything else has sidewalk?
And then, but if the lots aren't sold yet, then they don't have sidewalk either, so there's not complete connection. But usually, I mean, if it's something that's being dedicated to the city, if it's a lot, like a detention pond area or a park, we want to make sure that the developer is putting in that sidewalk, so the city's not taking on that responsibility. So that's one area that should have sidewalk. And I don't think that the interested party is opposed to running sidewalk along the property lines.
Actually,
That would be the buyer, right?
the developer or the owner of the detention pond lot came to you already asking you to forgive the requirement to install sidewalks, and you said no, that you still want the sidewalks. But so they would be required adjacent to Lot A, and all our ordinance says sidewalks on both sides of every street. So that's supposed to be the developer's responsibility, and so that would presumably be in a new development agreement that would result when we cancel out the old one, if you decide to do that.
So can I clarify something? So the developer, interested party, whatever we want to use that term we want to use, they're not going to develop to the south there? They're not going to develop those other lots? Wait a minute, let me rephrase the question. Does the developer own that property to the south? Or is that
So
adjacent to this property?
Lot A here.
Yeah.
This area is included with this plat, so it is owned by the same party that I guess has all of Compesca Dunes' second subdivision. The remaining lots that have not been sold, but then there have been the lots that are sold, so there's also a lot other parties involved too.
Yeah.
So, and it runs with the heirs and assigns and the land. This land.
Okay.
So
The obligation lies with the landowner. And if it sells, the new guy inherits the responsibility to complete the improvements.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And this isn't unique in that we have a development agreement with outstanding requirements. Our ordinance says all required improvements for approval of a subdivision must be constructed within 2 years. And we gave 10 years for this. And 10 years have passed and the improvements haven't been made. There's still a few things outstanding. So it probably has some bearing on some of those other development agreements with outstanding requirements, although each one is unique. This would be a precedent to cancel out obligations. Josh?
Mayor, the current developer that owns this property, if he sells it off, has he indicated that, like, the turnaround, would he complete that, or is that going to be completed, or is that still going to, would we put that in the provisions?
We don't get involved when they sell. We have no way of even knowing. So it's just, this is recorded. It's up to the city if we would choose to try and enforce any of, we have probably over 100 development agreements that we've recorded, and we've never ever enforced any of them. And so it's an effort. It's disturbing to the staff to know that the developers are making promises that they aren't keeping. In some cases, they keep all their promises and everything gets done. In other cases, there's just a little minor thing here and there they don't do. But we don't have a process established where we go back and look and see what's been done at the expiration, or when the expiration of, where their time limit is approaching, where we go back and tell them, we're still waiting for you to do this handicap ramp or turnaround or whatever. We haven't done that in the past, and I have directed the staff to make a list, and it's huge. The whole engineering department is involved in compiling a list, first of all of the recorded development agreements, and then they'll be looking at each and every one of them to see if they've been satisfied. So we know that. If they've been satisfied, we will make a note in the file so that we don't have to wonder. If they haven't been satisfied, we've been talking for years and years about doing an extra layer on our GIS for obligations, and you may have heard us talking about our obligation layer. So we know when someone promised to finish the road, or they promised to put in the sidewalk, or whatever. We can see that at a glance without having to dig, and then we'll know. And once we get it all compiled and we know what we're talking about, how big this monster is of unsatisfied obligations, we'll be bringing that back to the council to share with you. This is just one of many. And so since the council authorized going forward without the improvements being made, there was a promise to make them within 10 years that hasn't been satisfied. So the question that you're being asked is, how comfortable are you with dismissing some of these requirements? Would you want to wait and see what a new layout would be before you would give I mean, that's perfectly fair to ask for that.
Brandy, can you give me the requirements that need to be done?
Well, this provision here, H, and I think it's on, so 2H, it says no later than 10 years from the date of this instrument is recorded with the Register of Deeds, proprietors shall construct at their sole cost the sidewalk adjacent to the detention pond, and then it references the remainder of 34th Street West and 11th Avenue North to city standards for a local residential street with parking on both sides of the street. The aforementioned street will be constructed in Lot A or in the dedicated public right-of-ways in accordance with anticipated future plats in the location as indicated on the attached approved preliminary plan layout, which the preliminary plan wasn't attached to this, and it also does make it a little awkward because we don't have dedicated public right-of-ways per this plat that they were tied to. So, and then that's just, I mean, those are the main ones. I know I went through and highlighted some other ones. A temporary turnaround shall be constructed on private property on lot 12, complete with compacted subgrade. And so it was supposed to be improved better than what it was. But that's something that per an updated development agreement, you could make it better, you know, and say that it has to be improved to city standards.
They did do a turnaround, but they did not do it as described in the development agreement. I think it's gravel, and it's not on lot 12. I think it's on lot A. And so the owner of lot 12 would then get a big turnaround in their yard if we enforce this. It should have been done before that lot was sold so they could see what was on there. There's no house on that lot right now.
Is it sold?
Yes, it's been sold. But that is, you know, this was a recorded agreement, and when you buy property, presumably you are signing off on all of these thousands of pages that come before you. The detention pond has some, it hasn't been accepted either, so there's some, it's been built but not per standards, and we're waiting for some things on that. So there's turnaround, there's road, there's sidewalk, and there's a few detention pond things that are left outstanding here.
My personal opinion is they gotta do the pond to standard. I mean, that's going to be a bare minimum. I mean, that controls flood issues and everything else. They should have the sidewalk around there if we're going to have sidewalk around the rest of it. Why wouldn't you put sidewalk around the retention pond? I mean, that doesn't even make sense. So you're going to be able to drive sidewalk and then all of a sudden you hit dirt. So as far as the road, I understand the fire marshal's 30 count, but personally I'd rather see a secondary entrance in case there was ever a major catastrophe or if services needed to get in there, as well as just street department maintenance, and snow removal is always an issue when you get out into that area, especially out by the lake and out in the open areas that it blows through there. So now whether it has to go back around like the previous drawing, I don't have an issue with that. I don't think it has to. I think you could do it, you know, maybe go straight out to Golf Course Road or something along those lines. That would be, in my opinion, that would be okay. Gives them a secondary access. I don't have an issue if they go on to 10th Avenue / Golf Course Road there. And the one that runs along the north side there, is that 33rd? Brandy, is that what that is?
34th.
34th, okay.
Oh, sorry, right here?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
33rd.
Yep.
They have access points where it comes in and it has essentially like a frontage road. So, I mean, that's not uncommon. So, whether we break it into quadrants or not, I have no issue with that. But they need to have some sort of a road that gets in there in case there is, frankly, a catastrophe that they need to get out. I don't really want to have someone driving through a field to get out of there. So whether that goes straight down, from where the roundabout could be, just straight down to that road, I would be okay with that, which would give them 2 access points on those lots as well.
Right. And then the turnaround could be dismissed.
Yeah, it could go away, yes.
Yep.
So
and that was intended to be temporary.
That would give you your 2 access points on the west side of that. And I would assume is that pipe's still there, correct?
The pipe is still there in that angle.
And that's active?
Yes.
Oh.
So this is kind of the plan. And then depending too on what you guys decide with the road, just because of sanitary sewer that is not on Golf Course Road, he was planning on connecting it on 34th there and then just having this be one big lot. Now these are 4-acre lots. Sorry about that crooked line. But
so it's 3 then, or is that 4?
yeah, well, he was thinking the quadrants will come if he has to put a paved access there, I believe, because otherwise the sanitary sewer manholes couldn't be extended unless they had all-weather access. So then that would come. But if it wasn't necessary or a requirement, whatever you guys decide, he was willing to just do 3.
Randy, I have a question. Is there secondary access to block 1 on the north side on those lots?
Oh, for the lots like up
Yeah.
to the north on 33rd?
Right.
They have a service road. So
There's a long lot, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
No.
There's nothing.
That's the same.
oh,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
So they don't have a service road
No.
for that.
12th
So,
Avenue is supposed to come around, circle back around. With another block below that.
I mean, are we talking about a full-fledged street, or are we talking about just maybe a?
Well, the development agreement says a full-fledged street with curb and gutter, and that's the problem, because that's expensive. And that was supposed to be built by the developer. That when we've done these development agreements, they promise to do it in a certain amount of time, but there's always the provision that if they sell the land, this agreement runs with the land, not with the person. And so whoever buys that land buys that obligation, and theoretically, if there are 20 lots sold to 20 different people, it also lies with them. And they probably feel that they already paid their share when they bought a lot. But technically, the obligation is still partly theirs for the whole development, because it's not broken out to, if you sell a little piece of it, they don't have any obligation. It's all sold off eventually. So it still runs with the owners, all of the owners included. Josh?
Mayor, a question. So then if he was to run a street from 34th down to Golf Course,
Yes.
right? So then would that large lot then be required to run sidewalk all the way down there as well?
Well, it would depend if that were a public street. There would have to be sidewalk in the roads that are already there.
Mhm.
And if that were a private street, then the sidewalk requirement could go away. That would be up to the council. But sidewalks are required on both sides of every public street.
That could be a right of waiver of protest too, I think, on that, if we did decide that there needed to be a sidewalk.
Yes, you can temporarily forgive obligations with a waiver of right to protest, which says, okay, we're not making you do it now, but if in the future we ever do an assessment project, you won't fight it. And that, yes, that goes with the land as well.
There's no sidewalk on that north side of Golf Course Road anyway.
Sure.
Currently.
On the north side.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, the bike trail runs through, where does that pass over?
There's no bike trail east.
It's on the
west.
east, it's on the
There's
east side.
bike trail on the east side of 33rd.
East side of that, right? Yeah.
Right. But, I mean, I could see a need for a future path
Yeah.
that's a fairly busy street, Golf Course
Yep.
Road. Yes.
Glenn?
Well, I guess.
Excuse me, you should
I'm sorry.
speak into the microphone
I'm sorry.
and state your name for the record.
I'm not a developer. or
No,
a
that's
public
okay.
speaker, so, I guess my vision for the land, and whether it happens or not, I've looked at that land a few times. I looked at it last year, and then I just dead end. I'm sure along with everybody that's ever looked at the land, because if you would, and I never shot it with a laser, so I can't say for sure, but I would say a minimum of 2 feet of fill. You'd have to fill 13 acres, and so as far as anybody developing it, I don't see that happening, because it wouldn't be just fill; it'd be engineered fill for your roads and your sidewalks. So you're talking a major amount of money for someone to do that.
Could
If you were
explain
to-
why it's not developed yet.
What's that? Well, yeah, and then not only that, but like if Tom and those guys have to come in there and do that right now, put sidewalks and roads, it'd be a sidewalk and then down in a hole. That's what you'd have right now if you would require those things before a building permit was pulled or something. Whereas I can maybe, I mean, if you guys require sidewalks, I could maybe see that for, if you had 3 houses and everybody had to pay for their strip of sidewalk on their frontage, I could see that happening. I don't know how necessary it'd be, because I don't know what you'd even connect to. You wouldn't connect to the Gulfview Estates, a dead end right past a tree line, which is, I don't know, how do I, right over here? Is that where that tree line is?
Or that's that detention pond
Oh, okay.
area. There's a berm that like runs like that.
Yeah, but the land is actually, I'm not gonna say useless, but you've got a right of way with a live water line underneath it. So to develop this land, there's no wonder why it has sat that way. So as what I was thinking is, if I could put possibly 3 lots, at least it'd be revenue versus this. I mean, I can't say for sure, but if I was a banker, I'd be very scared to lend any developer money to do anything here because he's gonna spend a lot before a house ever goes on this. So I could see this sitting vacant for another, how many years? So that's, but that's up to you guys. But if a roadway has to be put in, I mean, you could spend, I don't doubt $100,000, maybe more, just getting that one road going through there. In which case, if that's something that you guys are gonna require, then for me, the meeting's over, because it's not gonna happen for me. But,
Right now, if you were to develop that land, if you purchased it, you're purchasing that obligation unless the council.
yeah, that
Cancels
wouldn't even
it.
be an option for me. And I don't think it would be for anybody else. I don't know why they would even do it.
Right. So if you were very interested, you could take it upon yourself to draft up a proposal for the council to take into consideration as an alternative that to the other one, and they could then take action to, upon receipt of a signed development agreement to do the alternative, that they would forgive the existing development agreement.
I had a purchase agreement signed on it last year, and
You didn't know about this, or?
I didn't know about the water line going through there. There was a lot that was, I can see why somebody's trying to get rid of it.
We can too, and it's, I mean,
And-
it wasn't a practical plan, and that's why it hasn't developed, but even so, there were promises made that haven't been fulfilled.
And these guys are, one guy's 80+ years old, and I'm nothing against that. I'm just saying, I don't know how that's gonna happen.
It runs with the land.
It runs with the land.
It doesn't run with the person.
And like you said, I guess I would ask what the council would want me to do. That's kind of, my plan would be very simple. And if you guys, I would just need to know, am I gonna be required to, what I'd be required to do? And then I would make a determination whether this goes to somebody else or.
And just for clarification, the current owner of Lot A is not the person that signed the development agreement. So,
Which would be Engstrom and Carlson, is that correct?
yeah, the original developers
I'm not sure what happened.
are not the current owners.
In that situation, but
It just wasn't practical, probably. Didn't work out
no,
financially.
I bought one, I dealt with them guys on another lot that I built on, but.
So I think where Glenn is at is he would hope that you just wanted the turnaround easement here, and then that there was not a road, a secondary access.
A secondary access, and even, the sidewalks would, should I be talking into this thing or? The sidewalks, I guess, they'd be like little ranchettes is what they would be.
There was a grading plan that did make sense with sidewalks not being little elevated pieces. I mean, if they had implemented the grading plan, it would have been gently sloping land with sidewalk in a.
I dug down in that land with a shovel. I could never, probably in good conscience, sell that land without saying you're gonna need a crawl space and you're gonna need to build up around your house. And that's, I mean, I would go down 2 feet with a footing and build up around them houses. Otherwise, you're gonna have the same situation as just a little further north where you're pumping water as you're trying to pour footings.
We know that.
I saw it. So when I was building up there probably 10 years ago, and that's why this, if you would have a structure, build up around it, I think you can have people have a nice home there and be safe without any water issues.
there was an actual requirement that no basements would be allowed in this general area, that the landowners objected to and demanded, and the council did remove that requirement. And then people have basements and they have sump pumps that
They'll
work
never quit.
24/7.
They're pumping a lake. I mean,
Yeah.
I just
They can't, I mean, no matter what you say, there's going to be people that disagree. But that's practical, what you're saying. We do require the lowest floor elevation to be shown on preliminary plans as an ordinance requirement, and that's why, is so that people understand, they can see what the ground elevation is, and you have to build above the groundwater table. So if you're looking at that lowest finished floor is 6 feet above the existing grade, there's a lot of fill needed there.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope that's not the case. I mean, I'm hoping that you would be able to put 2-3 feet of fill around a house, slope it, and get it to run away into the,
No, this,
so I guess my question for the council would be, is this something, will you guys remove all that or not? And then I would. make my
this
decision.
wasn't intended to be an action item, but you're free to give your opinions as a Public Works Committee.
My recommendation would be come back with what you're looking to have done, Glenn. And it's Glenn Prouty, just an FYI,
Yeah.
in case people are wondering.
I think,
Just with your what you're recommending or what you would like to see removed. That way we can actually discuss it and see how it would have to be.
To take an action.
To take
so
action.
There's a record of what was requested.
Yep.
And
So basically, you'd like to see the road requirements, the sidewalk requirements, and things of that nature. Get a lot of echo going on.
do you have that? Did you put any of that together
The development agreement. Well, see, and that's where,
with what I was going to propose? Do you have
like, as an update.
well? You drew that.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
I do have that, but I'm not logged into this computer, so
Okay.
I can pull it up. But this is, I drew it here. I mean,
You're
We'd
right.
probably want something a little straighter on that, Brandy.
Blue line's good.
well, but then we would bring this forward as a plat, so then a surveyor would need to make that plan. But this is the preliminary.
You could do a preliminary action plan as far as what we're looking to have, what you're looking to have removed from the existing one. And then I personally would rather see one of the gentlemen that own it come with it so that it can be discussed one way or the other. Because worst case scenario, we could say, no, you need to put that road in now.
Right.
So-
and I don't want to be in that position.
No, but I would say that I personally would rather see them come with, nothing against you, Glenn, just as this is
But-
what the requirements are.
Do you guys know whether you're going to enforce it?
Don't know.
Don't know.
They don't know what it is that they're being asked to enforce, is essentially, till it's in black and white and we can see specifically. This isn't, and, I hesitate to bring one forward, knowing that we have 10 others.
Yeah.
And, I mean, in fairness to the council, when they take an action that might be setting a precedent, we should let them know what kind of other ramifications there will be to their decision.
Okay.
And it would be the first time we've ever forgiven a development agreement. And it might color the way they approve future development agreements. Because if they find that 1 in 100 development agreements isn't honored, so what? We'll address the 1 in 100. But if we find that it's 90 in 100, then that's a different consideration.
Need to know how many people are getting affected on this and how it affects them. And that's nothing against you, Glenn, at all. Just trying to figure out what you would like to have done, that we can say, yes, we can do that, or no, we cannot do
Is
that.
this something that you want to see me in here again, or is this something I can give to Brandy?
You can give to Brandy, and Brandy
she
can present it. If you want to come, feel free. They're open meetings.
Yeah, all right, sounds good.
Right.
Kind of long-winded at times, but
Well, thank you for your time.
Yep.
yep. Thanks, Glenn.
Is there anything
Thank
else
you.
that I need to? Okay.
And just
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Adam, just to piggyback on what the mayor had said earlier, you'd mentioned bringing in the current landowner. To reiterate what she said, those obligations don't just run with the owner of Lot A; they run with all 15 homes out there. So if you wanted to bring in all 13 or 15,
I'd like them to know what they're signed up for.
in theory they should have known that at the closing, but
Yes.
they probably don't.
Right.
And you know, I think that as we go on with development, that it might not be a bad idea too to just, you know, case by case basis, but then have your fact of findings of why you felt like this was okay, that it's not impacting your
Yeah.
public safety, and you know, things of that nature, just to have a paper trail, or you know, to as we see these in the future, you know, and then so then we can make a decision on them as they come, and then we'll keep working on that project of gathering all the development agreements and the requirements that haven't been met, and then know that when they're approached, or however we decide to handle that at that time, but just so it's not completely overwhelming, and then one person can make a decision and move on, find another property, or
Yeah.
get to work.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any old business?
I just got one quick question. Do we do letter occupancies for people? I mean, when they build a house and stuff like that, do we go through and give them an actual letter of occupancy that they're allowed to?
Not single-family homes. We do for multiple, like, apartment buildings, and all commercial or industrial get occupancy.
Is there a reason we don't do it for other single families?
It's just been, we have recognized that people are going to start living in their house before it's finished, and we've allowed it. Other communities don't do that, and it was just, you know, thought to be developer friendly, I think,
Okay.
and to allow incentive for people to build their own homes.
I know in my line of business, I do get asked for them, and I've never been able to provide them. so.
Right, because we don't, yeah,
So-
that has been an issue, and it's kind of an old-fashioned way of doing things. Most communities, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another community our size that does not have the practice of issuing occupancy permits on single-family homes. And, but that's
I think it's something that we should look at as
something
a
we should
community.
consider, yes.
You know, and especially when we're talking about development agreements and things of that nature, we should not fully sign off on a development agreement until all the items have been met. So,
On a
maybe-
related subject, we also do not do occupancy permits when land changes hands and someone new buys it. Only if a building permit is taken out is there an occupancy granted. So someone with an improper use in a zone can buy property and start using it in an inappropriate way, and they've made a significant investment before they even find out that what they're doing is illegal. And that's come up before, people who find out that, well, I didn't know I couldn't do this in this building. No one ever told me. But it doesn't come before the staff for them to even comment. It could. But the way our regulations are, that does not happen. If you buy land, you don't have to get it approved by us.
do we have any disclosure items, Matt, on record, as far as disclosing everything that's with a parcel of land from owner to owner?
I'm not sure what you're.
You know,
getting
if
at.
there is a agreement on there like that lot 12 turnaround,
Well, that would be something the title company should
have disclosed.
providing to those
Okay.
folks.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we had anything in there.
Right.
But we have to that any seller has to disclose items with that.
Well, if they're recorded at the Register of Deeds office, those should be disclosed in the title transfer.
Okay.
Whether people pay close enough attention to that or not, that's
What
another
are you
question.
talking about?
I'm not sure, I
Would be
guess. What are you
disclosed?
talking about?
I'm just wondering if we have anything in our ordinances that they have to disclose anything that stays with the land. But obviously, title companies would do it on
Anything
the title
recorded, yes. If it, and our development agreements are recorded at the courthouse against the land.
Okay.
So if that land changes hand, the people that are buying it are signing off on having
Okay.
received it.
That's
Right.
what,
If
more
it's
what I was
not
looking-
recorded, no. And a lot of things aren't recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's
Well,
not
I'm aware.
recorded, then shame
I'm
on
aware that
us.
things
If it's not recorded, then shame on us. But if it's recorded, then they
Okay.
should be made aware of it.
Okay.
So-
Thank you.
Is there any other old business? Any new business? There's no reason to go into executive session, and we don't have a quorum anymore, so I guess we'll just adjourn. We have to stay here until another council member shows up.